UndergroundVideoNetwork.com presents the We Talk Too Much podcast.
This is where the fun begins.
Comic books, superheroes, sci-fi, gaming, and everything nerdy.
That's it. This is just too weird.
Now, here's your host of the We Talk Too Much podcast, Mike and Richard.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of Underground Video Network's We Talk Too Much, our inaugural 2023, our first episode of the new year, because we are so far behind. Rich, how's it going?
Good.
Friendly reminder, I am Michael Boroff.
I'm Richard Catterjohn.
I am Rich. I was very tempted to do the whole, it feels like it's been an entire year since I've seen you joke, but no, it's too late. How was your holidays, Rich?
It was fun. Worked a lot of basketball games. Basketball season starting, so I've been taking photos constantly, it seems like.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the stuff, especially down at the Ohio State.
Oh, yeah, I've been down the games for those too. Yeah, the women basketball, number 2 in the nation.
Yeah. Sports! Look at you breaking boundaries and,
I've always been basketball. Everybody knows that.
Stereotypes. Oh, man. Yeah, living in Ohio, man, I know we joke about it all the time, but that was what it was like over the holidays, where it was just like 75, 7, 13.
You mean -5.
It was a couple, yeah.
I know when I got off work the one day, it was -5.
Oh, glorious life in the Midwest. But hey, at least we had plenty of good pop culture stuff to keep us warm in these cold winter weeks.
Yeah, this whole year is going to be pretty crazy with some stuff coming up.
Yeah. Talk real quick about some of the previews and stuff that we have to look forward to going into 2023. We got to talk, Richard. I'm excited for this one, man. As of recording this, one of the final longer, better trailers for Ant-Man Quantumania dropped, and we finally got to see a little snippet of a couple of the things that have been hinted about the last few months. We got to see MODOK.
Right.
Come on, I don't know why I'm so ridiculously excited for MODOK, but I am ridiculously excited for MODOK. And I'm really excited to see what they're going to do with it because, again, being the MCU and not exactly tied to the comic books, this isn't the same MODOK that we've seen in the comic books or even the Hulu special. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen that, Patton Oswalt as the voice of MODOK, that was priceless. That was so good. But we learned that it is Darren Cross that is MODOK. It's confirmed by I really like the actor. If you ever get a chance to watch him in The Strain, he was The Strain was another one of those kind of, I picked up on it a little bit after the popularity had started to die down. But when I watched it, I got hooked. That was a very good show. And he was really good in it. But it was confirmed by his IMDb page. Darren Cross / MODOK.
Cool. Yeah, we only got a few more weeks and it comes out.
I know.
February the 17th.
And already, I picked up just today at my local comic book store, which would be all three going on, Ohio. I got the pop, man, because I am going hardcore in the merchandise this time around. I am not missing out. I am a little surprised and disappointed at the same time, Rick, because the movie only comes out in a few weeks, but Lego hasn't released a set that ruins a major plot point yet. Come on, Lego, you've never failed me. We've gotten the Giant Man from the airport scene, that set was released weeks before Civil War. The
Right.
Quantum Tunneler, that was released weeks before Ant-Man and the Wasp. Come on, man, where's my MODOK set? Where's my Chronopolis? Oh, that's the set.
Yeah, it looks like it's going pretty interesting what they're going to pull off with this. So
I'm going to be honest with you, Richard. This is the first chance I've gotten to talk to you. I'm actually really nervous about this one, Richard, because so many of the people that we've grown to know and love in the MCU, especially, I hate to say it like this, of a certain age demographic, are moving on, and not only moving on, but passing the torch. I'm really nervous, Richard, between the two of us and, the two people probably watching this or listening to it, about the fate of Scott Lang.
oh yeah.
I mean, it is not outside the realm of possibility that this might be last movie. Paul Rudd is in a position where, he doesn't need to do this. Evangeline Lilly and all of them, they're, hey, the best movies come in trilogies, and we've got our three,
Yeah.
I am Richard.
I didn't know what his contract was for. I think it's up too, right?
I think so. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to see him leave. But at the same time, Richard, I'm going to be disappointed. I'm going to be heartbroken, but not surprised if something happens to Scott in this movie. I'm calling it right now, Richard. I think something's going to happen to him.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to die, get killed, or retire. But we've talked about this for the last couple of years, Richard. They're setting up the next generation of it. I know that look, Richard.
Josh is commenting. Too much handsome going on over here.
Gosh, I'm flattered that you listen to us while watching Pornhub, but bro, focus. So there, yeah. Hey, John, man, good to see you, man. Good to hear from you. But no, I am, Richard. I am legitimately. I don't want to see him go, but I'm. Mention it, like I said, they're setting up the next generation, and I mean, we're getting that in this movie. We're getting Casey Lang.
Yeah, I know. It's what it has to do. You got to keep going forward with characters. You just can't just keep rehashing. And I've noticed that Marvel kind of wants to do that. I think it wants to go forward and make things, new and fresh.
Which I am not again. I'm not one of those people that completely scared to change. If they do Casey right, I'm all for it. She's a great character. I absolutely love her in the comic books as Stinger and Stature for a while. I'm completely fine with it. Maybe we'll get lucky. Scott and Hope decide, hey, you know what? Depending on how the movie ends, we don't know. Hey, we're going to retire in the quantum realm. It's nice. We got a little house by the Tardigrades, Casey, you got this. We're, who knows? But
of course, we got time travel now, so you never know what's going to happen.
I know, and I mentioned this to another friend of mine, Richard. My big fear with the fate of Scott Lang boils down to two things: is he going to go Tony Stark, or is he going to go Steve Rogers? Is he going to die, or is he going to retire? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That preview looked flippin' fantastic. We got to see the first glimpse of a very comic accurate looking Kang.
Yeah.
And it was really neat the way they did it too.
Yeah, it was like he had like something up above that kind of made his face look like the blue, which when he turns, then it goes away. So when he's actually talking, it's like back to his more natural look, you know.
Yeah. We got to see a lot more of the quantum realm.
Yeah.
Little teaser, a little quick pass by of Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Yeah. But MODOK. And not only MODOK, but we got to see let's say the two versions, masked and unmasked. Because the version that we saw in the original teaser, and we've seen in a lot of the promotional stuff, like the pop and everything, was with the gold face, which turns out to be, later on a helmet or mask. Because in the snippet we saw here recently, we got to see the more human face of Darren Cross, a little bit more of the MODOK that we're used to seeing in the past before.
Yeah. Who knows? It's probably some kind of into the realm, whatever.
Yeah, because I mean, we've already learned, especially with Kang, it's Darren Cross, but is it the Darren Cross that Scott knows?
Right.
And that was one of the nice little Easter eggs in Loki was when they were in that limbo. All the Easter eggs of stuff that was sprinkled throughout. We saw a huge Yellow Jacket helmet.
Yeah.
So, that acknowledges that, there's a multitude of them too. And we know there's a multitude of Scott Langs because we're seeing a whole bunch of them get slaughtered or spaghettified.
Yeah, that's really reminiscent from Doctor Strange with Reed Richards, when Scarlet Witch,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just Marvel and having all this multiverse, and now they have time travel on top of it. Who knows where they're going to go with stuff anymore?
Yeah. I'm very looking forward to it. I mean, one thing, Rich, is I am happy about this. When I saw the full preview, before the full preview came out, my big fear was, oh man, I don't need another Ant-Man costume. I just bought the really good one. I will say this. I saw the costume. I like it a lot, but I'm good. Where, I'm not like, I need that suit so bad. No, I'm good. The only preview that we've had dropped here recently, has it, Rich?
They did have that little teaser for like some of the other upcoming, like in the DC Plus, because it had the Loki and that stuff. We got to see maybe what might be part of what's going on there and stuff like that. But no, the trailers have been a little shy lately.
Yeah.
Of course, Super Bowl is coming up. We'll get a bunch.
This is true. One little teaser that just dropped a couple days ago that I was super excited for is one of my new favorite shows. One of my favorite shows is Letterkenny. And over Christmas break, we got a new season, which was, and I love that. I love Letterkenny so much. That is one of the most well-written shows. I love this latest season of it. Was back to like, what did people really love from the first couple seasons? Well, let's do that again. But the fact that it got a spin-off, Shoresy, which focused on the character of Shoresy, playing hockey in Northern Canada, I was like a lot of Letterkenny fans, like, how the hell are they going to do that? First of all, we never saw Shoresy's face throughout the entirety of Letterkenny, so how are they going to do that? They pulled it off. The show was great. They didn't pull any punches because the actor that plays Shoresy is the same actor that plays Wayne in Letterkenny. They just announced a few days ago that Shoresy is getting the second season, which for me and a certain group of friends, especially Alex at Alter Ego, was just like, yes! So, super excited about that.
Yeah, I even re-upped my subscription to Netflix so I could watch Wednesday, which I love that series. Finally got
Wednesday.
I finally got caught up on that. But what just dropped recently was that '90s show. You know, the sequel to
Yeah.
the '70s show. If you get a chance, that is hilarious. I really enjoyed where they went with this because we know we had some cameos in the first episode, but they're really trying to build its own on top of that. You know, so
Yeah. No, I got to a lot of the it was great the way they did it. I like the way we knew that the first episode was going to be, I don't want to say cameo heavy, but
oh
they got to establish, that it's their kids.
yeah, well, it's nice that the two kids are meeting up over the summer break and stuff, you know. So that's
Yeah.
where they're going to run with that part of the storyline, and it's them going back and forth. You know, it's just interesting how it's still, like you said, within that universe of what really was, and how that the mom and dad has become grandparents. You know, it was just
Yeah.
kind of cool. You know,
And watching the interaction between Eric and his daughter and Red seeing it.
oh yeah,
I did see that, Richard, where it was no spoilers, but it was just like, part of me is like, as a parent, I feel for you, but the other part of me is like, payback's a bitch.
yeah, that was a good part.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, man. You know what was, Richard, because I haven't got to sit down and watch all of it, but I got to see was seeing the kids, and by the kids I mean like Kelso and Jackie speaking to Red and Kenny as peers and not kids.
Oh yeah.
Like when Kelso, Kitty, oh, you look so beautiful, picks her up, and she's just like all flustered. And then when Jackie comes in and it's like, oh, hey, Kitty, hey, Red. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, you're not old enough to be on a first name basis with Eric's parents. Like, yo, yes, they are. I think that's what gets me, Richard, is the math makes sense. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, wait a minute. If this was 1970 and it was, okay, and the kids are, okay, if Eric's this age, so the kids would, oh, God.
Yep, 20 years.
Yeah.
Because they're going on 16 in the show, so.
And God, I don't know what Kitty and Red, I don't know what their diet's like, but the fact that the two of them have not aged, well done, you. I love. Oh, I love I've always loved the chemistry between Red and Kitty. And it's just, those are just two of my favorite sitcom parents of all time. Oh, but speaking of favorite sitcom parents, Richard, you mentioned earlier we haven't got to talk about Wednesday.
Oh yeah,
very well. Where I really enjoyed that show, very much.
Yeah, it was a lot better than what I thought it would be. You know.
Yes, the cast was great. I really did. I really enjoyed. Okay. Oh, I'm going to go off on TikTok here for a second. The only thing that really bothered me, Richard, and it's not about this show. Again, this is just an old man complaint. Was the show was so great. The show had a great soundtrack. I mean, God, dude, the Cramps.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes. But it was like that whole TikTok craze. Because first of all, Jenna Ortega's. When I found out later on that whole incredible dance sequence that took place at was like the prom or whatever,
right?
Like that was her.
Oh,
they just went, and it was very well done because as an old school Addams Family fan, she added, a little bit of because screw you naysayers, Wednesday Addams was a dancer. I will never forget the original show when she was trying to get Lurch.
Oh yeah.
I loved it. She danced back on that. But it was the whole thing, Richard, where I saw that TikTok grabbed a hold of it and made it, this new dance craze, which was fine. On. Don't get me wrong. I am a big fan of Lady Gaga. I think she's got some awesome tunes. She's a fantastic actress. American Horror Story, mwah, she was fantastic. I like the song. I really do. But it wasn't the song that was in the show. Screw you. Give the Cramps their due. That was just my thing, but
Yeah, it was but yeah, I liked how there was all the little inside references and stuff like that, little Easter eggs, as
yeah.
they say, and stuff. So they had homage back to the original and the movies and everything else. So
And I love how they organically snuck in.
oh yeah.
When they did that, I was like, bravo, that was perfect. That was perfect.
Yeah, I always loved it, like when that part, and then she was tied up, and she goes, and was just like this. She was like so quick to get out of it, and when she was being recruited by the sorority, or whatever, or not sorority,
Mhm.
secret Illuminati group on the school or
Mhm.
whatever. It had a little bit of like Harry Potter thrown in that part,
Yeah.
which is okay, but I liked how it just stood on its own, and
Yeah.
and the whole Thanksgiving part was, reference back to the movie and stuff like that. It was just good.
Like you said, Richard, it was hard to not draw the correlations between like the school and the different houses in the school and Harry Potter. But I liked that it was known to the public. Like it was known in the small town
Oh yeah,
what the school was,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. It wasn't like Xavier's school, gifted children's a little bit.
Yeah. It's like we acknowledge that there's a school there and there are special kids there. It wasn't like Hogwarts where the muggles or had no knowledge of it whatsoever. No, the townies knew it.
Yeah.
And it was so brilliant the way they did it too, Richard. Like they knew it, they accepted it, they didn't like it, but they had to like it because they were getting money.
Oh, yeah,
The town was getting money from the school.
right.
So,
The endowment.
yes. As someone that's grown, that's lived in a town with, UNOH, I felt that pain. It's like, no, Townie. And as Uncle Fester, oh my God, that was so good. And much love to that man when I found out that he legitimately shaved his head for that role.
Oh, yeah.
I got nothing but respect for a head shaver. And it's so in character too. It's just like, I like to travel incognito, and the bike looked like the dog.
And what they did with Thing,
Thing looked awesome.
you
And that was another thing that I was really impressed by was when I found out that Thing was practical. Thing was a person
right.
hand.
Yeah.
It wasn't CGI. It was just green. It was
A real
green.
hand.
Oh, and that portrayal of Thing was very well done too. Where it was, for the people that can't hear me, I'm trying to mimic, but that was definitely very well done.
Yeah.
And I love the relationship between Wednesday and her roommate, and then Wednesday's roommate and Thing. Oh, that was great.
Yeah. Because she was getting her neck massages at night.
And what was it? Yes, I promise you, I will do the pedicure. Yeah.
I know one thing we forgot when we were talking about getting ready for the show. Bad Batch is back.
And Bad Batch has been damn good. Oh man. Yeah, the return of Bad Batch has definitely been welcomed. Yeah,
Yeah, I like how they played with the Rex character and gave him more acknowledgement of leaving the Empire and stuff like that in that third episode.
yes, because that was very well done. The way it was neat the way they did it, Richard, because it was the Bad Batch, but that episode focused on Rex and Crosshair and not so much at all of the Bad Batch.
Yeah,
It was great. It was a great episode.
yeah, and it still has that the Clone Wars feel because we're right after the Empire's taken over and stuff like that. But now with the second season, looks like they pushed it out a little bit even further. Not much, just a little bit more.
It's like it almost like Richard, like the first season was more focused on getting away from the Empire, and the second season is more of making their place in the universe away.
Yes.
Getting away this season, now what do we do? It was kind of split between, like Hunter and them were just like, we need to lay low. And like, no, we need to step up and, we need to help people.
Yeah, and then that fourth episode, I know a lot of people was comparing that back to the pod race stuff and everything, but I looked at it this way: we got to see a lot more background of the one that they've been contracting with.
Yes.
We gotta see a little more of her past, and a lot of people aren't really emphasizing that. But I think that's really good that we're going to start maybe seeing more of where she's from or whatever.
And I don't know if you noticed this, Richard, but when I was watching it, you know how I am when it comes to voice talents. I love the one I picked up. It was a couple episodes ago, but it was the one character that was flirting with Tech was Wanda Sykes. Like that was one of the her voice was so recognizable. I'm like, oh my god!
Yeah.
Of all my favorite comedians, just like it's not that I was surprised, but I'm like, how did they get her? But this last episode, Richard, the one big boss, gangster boss, I'm listening to it like I know that voice. Freaking Ernie Hudson.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, and I'm listening. I'm like, I rewound. I'm like, it is Ernie Hudson. But yeah, you're right because I liked his little dialogue. Was like, you think you know her? Man, you don't know her.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of where all that dialogue comes from. At least I hope.
Yeah. Speaking too, Richard, of the Star Wars universe, we were talking earlier about previews. The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The third season is going to be something else.
Yeah. It's the only thing that got me though, God damn it, Richard, was somebody's already kind of made fun of it. There's this great content creator I follow where he does deep fakes of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn's ghost. And he does, he does impressions and he does them perfectly, but it was the two of them watching the Mandalorian season 3, and when first of all they were ripping apart the fact that he was in an old N1 starfighter from episode 1, like, oh look, it's got a new paint job, and but when they were taking off and the mechanic says, "May the force be with you," I'm like, oh, she said it, she said the thing, like, oh come on, we did. She didn't need to say that, especially because he's got no love for But I was like, again, tiny little nitpick, But the fact that she's back alone is,
Right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what we get out of all of that season.
Yeah, because it's going to focus a lot on Mandalore and, you know,
Unification maybe of the planet again or something,
yeah, and his whole thing about wanting forgiveness for his transgression,
Right.
removing his helmet, like, bruh, you got the dark saber. You can forgive yourself. You're in charge.
Yeah, at least he's not being chased by zombies like in another series of his.
Oh, dude, we'll get into that in just a dude. But one of the other things I really enjoyed seeing in this preview was the our Weathers characters back again.
Oh yeah.
Grip. Oh, dude, Richard, my brain only has room for one of two things: real names or character names. I either know one or the other. I was so like my brain legitimately goes, make a choice. Do you want to know the character's name or the real name? Okay, Carl Weathers. Well, what's his character's name? I don't know. But we got to see a little snippet of him, and it looks like he's doing pretty very well for himself too, man. He was in some nice. He was not in rags. He looked like he had some nice duds on. And of course, Grogu.
Oh yeah.
We got to see we got to see him lay the Jedi smackdown from his little floating tram. That was awesome. I think we're going to get to see a little bit more of Mandalore, the different, definitely the different factions of the Mandalorians. What some of them consider the true Mandalorians, and as opposed to, you can't take your helmet off in front of anybody sect of the Mandalorians. Like you said, it could be, unification.
It'd be cool. I mean, he does have the means to do it now, so.
Yeah. He's like, look, yeah, see this? Sword. But no, speaking of Pedro Pascal, and this is one of the few people I know both character and real name. Dude, the damn time he is killing it, because not only are we getting him in season 3 of The Mandalorian, man. We finally, one of the things that I had been waiting for since the beginning, before the new year when it was first announced, on HBO Max, The Last of Us. Holy crap. Look, I have played The Last of Us. I've played The Last of Us, both part 1 and part 2. For me personally, I know we've talked about this before, Richard. Video game wise, Witcher 3 is still my end all beat all favorite game. It's that game I will never get rid of, which is why I was so in tune with the Netflix series. Very close second and or third, depending on how I'm feeling about Uncharted that day. The Last of Us is up there too in the top 5, if not the top 3 of my favorite video games. Last of Us was one of those games that had such a great story that I got very invested in it, both part 1 and part 2. Uncharted, great game, played it, loved it, good story. The Last of Us, man, my heart, it's just like there were certain scenes where it's like even I didn't know what was coming, so I was very nervous. The previews looked great visually. A lot of people were skeptical about Pedro Pascal, not because he's not a great actor, but I think just because something different than what we've seen him do before.
Oh yeah.
But
it seemed like he fit the part well for me, and I'm not that familiar with the video games, so.
he really did. My only complaint, even call it a complaint. Let me phrase it. Is I don't know if you noticed this, Richard, and it might just be me. He did a fantastic job, and his accent in it very good. But I'm listening to him. I'm like, he sounds so familiar. And then I close my eyes. Rich, you're going to have to go back. And if you're listening or watching this, if you think or agree or disagree with me, go back and check. I want to hear your opinion. He sounded exactly like Nathan Fillion. Like, I'm watching it and I'm listening. I'm like, where do I know that voice from? And I close my eyes and I'm like, dude, that's Captain Malcolm Reynolds. Again, I'm not complaining about it, but it was almost like his American dialect, or his American dialect, like he was doing an impression of Nathan Fillion. And if he was, bravo, that was dead on. And I noticed it even more when we'll talk about this in a minute, when I was listening to the podcast, the official The Last of Us podcast, where it was, just audio. And I'm like, that's freaking Nathan Fillion, man. But again, it's not a complaint. As someone who's played the video games, both of them, Richard, I dare say, of all of the TV, movie, whatever you want to call it, versions from a video game, this is the most accurate in a great, fantastic way. It is the most accurate. So much that, like, only a day or so after that it aired, that people on Twitter were already doing they'd show a clip from the game, and then they'd show that clip from the show. And I mean, and when you come to find out that one of the showrunners was also one of the creators and writers of the game, it made complete sense.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And I mean, even small details, like Richard, when they're at the very beginning of the show, when they're, by the way, spoiler alerts, we're going to talk about the show. And this will be the last I mention of the comparison, but when they're escaping in the truck and they get to that intersection, Richard, when you saw like the street signs, like, highway, whatever. Yeah. Ed copy. They took it word for, you know what I mean?
Oh,
like
okay.
Even when they drove by the house that was on fire, that is directly from the game. That was perfect.
Huh.
But this is interesting, Richard, because, as someone like me who's played the game, watching it, and you as someone who has not played the game, we can get really good perspectives here. Let's say the beginning part to it, the old like Dick Cavett type talk show.
Oh yeah.
The first thing that got me, Richard, is the actor that played the guy that talked about the funguses. Again, I don't know his real name. I apologize, but he was the brother in the Mummy movies.
Yes. Yeah.
So that for like a half a second took me out, because he's a great actor, but I can't take him seriously in anything, because I still see him as the brother from the Mummy. But I didn't last very long, because, man, when he started talking, dude, that whole dialogue was genuinely creepier and more terrifying than anything we saw later on in the show, because it was like, this wasn't science fiction. This was science fact furnished with fiction. Like, this could happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was brilliant the way they did it, because when that audience, at first they're chuckling like, oh, that's a funny comment. Smoke, smoke, smoke. Oh, scotch, scotch, scotch. But when he laid it all out, man, that audience, man, they were just like dumbfounded, and so was the host.
Yeah, I like how he was saying about the viruses and stuff. Then all of a sudden it's fungi, and then how it ends with saying how the planet's getting warmer and stuff.
Yeah, and I know what he was talking about because I've seen those pictures and those videos of that fungus that latches on to insects. It's a real thing. I've seen it. And it was just like, yeah, it can't because it can't, most funguses can't, survive in a human body because of the temperature. But what if the planet got warmer? And that was the moment, like, oh, because the planet is getting warmer. Oh,
Yeah.
I really enjoyed too, Richard, how they stayed very, very accurate to the game, but were still able to flesh out a lot of it because you got to figure, Richard, in the game, characters are Joel and Ellie. Anything that happens outside of the two of them, we usually just find out through exposition. But because it's a show, see more about it. Like here's an example, Richard. In the video game, at the very beginning, when everything first starts happening, one of the major dramatic scenes is Joel and his daughter Sarah are still in their house when the neighbor comes crashing through the door and attacks them. We don't know this person, we just know that it's the neighbor.
Right.
Because the show was able to flesh it out, the neighbor, was like the babysitter, and she stayed over there and spent time, with the neighbor and Nana. That added to it because now there was a personal involvement. There was a attachment to that character.
Oh yeah.
Which just made and you want to talk about creepy, Richard? This was a nice subtle thing, man. A freaking dog. That's one of the things you always learn in a horror movie. Is always watch the animals. And when that dog was just staring at Nana, it wasn't growling, it wasn't barking, but it knew it was just stone cold quiet staring at her. You knew something was up. And that was very good the way they shot it too, because Nana was in the background, almost out of focus, and you could see her doing, this,
Yeah.
shaking my head, but getting the interaction with that character really made when Joe, Sarah, and his brother Tommy were in the truck, and Nana, fully focused out, comes busting out of the house. This wasn't just a random person, this was somebody that Sarah and Joel knew.
Right.
So when he clobbered her with the big wrench, she looked horrified. It's like she knew something bad was happening, but like, Dad, that was Nana. It added that level of emotion to it.
Yeah, and the military steps up quick and stuff like that. That is had some average zombie stuff, but at the same time, it was all filmed and done just a little different.
Yeah, and you want to talk about I mentioned it before, being dead accurate. The whole escape. Oh man, the thing with Sarah when they got away, but the army, the soldier, confronts Joel and Sarah. For people who know the game like I do, we knew what was coming. We knew it. That's how well the show was written, how well it was acted. I knew what was coming, but it still hit me. Like, still a gut punch. It was when he shot, and when Joel was sitting there holding his daughter. Oh, that broke. I mean, again, like I said, it got me in the video game, and it got me on the show too. It was heart wrenching.
Yeah. Huh.
Oh no, go ahead, Richard.
I was just like I said, it was more to me. The series seems more like the people is the focus, you know.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if the game is that way or not because, like I said, I've never played the game, but it was just different because you're seeing all this aspect outside of the normal shoot 'em up zombie,
Yep.
you know. And I'm tired of that type stuff, you know. That's
Yes, they are. They're it's almost the best way I can think of it, Richard, is like they're taking very good key moments from the game, cutscenes, and I hate to use the word cutscene because it downplays how good it was in the game, but they're almost using them like bullet points.
oh okay.
This, we want this, we want this. But then underneath it, we can add all this because we don't have it's a TV show. We don't have to focus on Joel learning how to run and how to crawl and how to throw something and how to craft this, you know. Another great example, Richard, was in the game we find out about the deal that had gone sour later with Tess, you know, when she was, you know, it was released that she was captured and tortured, you know, by the guy that betrayed them. But we only knew about that in the game through dialogue.
Oh, okay.
We got to see it in the show, which made it even better.
Well, that's cool.
The other thing I liked too, Richard, was look, we talked about this, Richard. When the show first started, it started off in 2003. And then fast forward to 2023, Richard, I don't know what it was. I don't know what time dilation brain aneurysm I had, but I'm like, oh, it's set in the future. Then my wheels started turning, and I'm like, no, 2023 is now. This isn't the near future. This is now. Like my brain could not put those two and two together. I was like, it is 2023. So that was really good, Richard. I like the way that they showed that, you know, when it hit current time, the thing with the little boy, when, you know, when he arrives at the gate.
Oh yeah.
The I don't want to say it's a FEMA or whatever they were called, you know, gets him. And it was nice the way they did it because you get the feeling that this organization, they're the bad guys, but like they were doing a necessary evil because they could have just shot the kid, you know. Again,
Yeah.
spoiler, but you know, they had the child, and it was a nice way of introducing to that military type aspect to it. Like these are the people that are in charge of keeping the fungus out. It was a good introduction to the scanner
Yeah.
because they couldn't go about it the same way they did in the video game. You know, they had to expand on it a little bit more. So, and especially since the scanner, you know, comes into play heavily later on in the show. But it was very nice the way that, you know, when they did the scanner on the child. It's like, you know, they didn't just, you know,
Yeah.
it was like, we're just going to give you a little shot. We're going to give you all the toys. You know, they were very humane about it. So, like, yes, they are the occupying force, you know. The show is so far it's doing very well, Richard, on plant for lack of a better word, planting seeds because that same child comes into play later when we see Joel 20 years later, gray hair. You know, this is the same guy who the last we saw him was in tears over holding his dying and dead daughter. See, no, they're not volunteers, they're getting paid for it, but the people that are basically disposing of the bodies, Richard,
Oh.
the one woman, and you knew it was going to be bad because you saw the truck, we saw the bodies being burned, but when the lady looks into the truck, she's like, I can't do it. And we saw those very familiar red sneakers that we just saw a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
This was a great way of showing how much has changed for Joel, because Joel was just like, whoop, shink, right on the pot.
Yeah.
That did more in one scene to show how much a character has changed than an hour's worth of dialogue could have.
But then later on, he does kind of snap when the girl was going to get shot. So that brought back all that deep emotion from back when the military guys shot his real daughter and stuff, or the character's daughter,
Yeah, that was a very high level of PTSD where you'll notice too, with his conversations with Tess, you get the feeling that, how do I put it? There is a dark side to Joel now, and she is keeping it in check. Like when he wanted to go after that group that tortured Tess, about the car battery, she reined him in. It was almost like she had him on a leash, like, no, we will proceed like this. So that there is something inside Joel, like bubbling underneath the surface. In that scene when they escaped the town, and did you notice it was the same military guy that Joel had the Black Arms deal with earlier, with the pills? Like, I told you to stay inside. That comes after we meet Ellie. And man, let me tell you again, because I know the show, they did a fantastic job casting Ellie. Holy crap. That her name is Bella Ramsey. And what's nice is what I found out too, Richard, was I looked at her and I was like, I recognize her from something. I didn't get to watch a lot of it, but she was also in Game of Thrones with Pedro Pascal. So the two of them already have a nice chemistry. They have a history. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
As people are familiar with each other, which is one of those things that makes a show great, is when the characters have great chemistry. You know what I mean? It's like they're not just acting across from each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
They did a hell of a job casting Bella. She looks and sounds a lot like Ellie from the game, which that character was based on the actress Ashley Richards, who, if you're familiar with Critical Role, she's one of the main contributors to that. The way she delivered some of the dialogue that was, word for word from the video game. Oh, perfect example when they did the side by side was when they first leave the outside. When holy shit, I'm outside. I would have thought that she was just lip syncing the dialogue from the video game, but no, that was her, man. She delivered that dialogue so good. Even before then, when the dialogue between her and Joel when they were in the apartment, it was really neat the way that she figured out Joel and his brothers. Oh man, I just really like this show, Richard. I am so all over the place with this one. Again, I'm talking too much. What I'm hoping for, Richard, and I was talking to Alex today about it. So many people are under the impression that, like, oh, we hope season 2 is going to be exactly like the second game. There's enough material here, Richard. I don't I really hope that they are able to expand the first game into multiple seasons. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like the end of season 1 does not need to be the end of the game. You know what I mean? They can go on. Especially since they're fleshing everything out. Because spoilers, if you know the game, Joel's brother Tommy. They allude to it at the beginning of the show. He's in radio contact with him. He's like at an outpost, and Joel hasn't heard from him. It plays a big part in the game, but it was the dialogue with Ellie and Joel about the music that they used for coding.
Oh, yeah.
That was, and the way she tricked him, she's like, it's like, oh, 80s song, and Joel like freaks out. She's like, haha, 80s music means something bad. She conned him a little bit, Oh, just man, as a fan of this type of genre and as a fan of the game, I have no complaints, Richard, about this show. I really do hope that they don't limit the season to just the game. If they play it right, Richard, because there is a lot that goes on in that game, they could pull out a couple seasons just from the first game.
I hope this works good, because the first episode was like one of the largest ratings or watched season debut on HBO Max. So
yeah, it's one of those rare things, Richard, where for people like me who know the game and are very passionate about the game, completely happy with it. For people like you, Richard, who know nothing about the game except for, generalized,
a post-apocalyptic zombie game.
Yeah. And I got to admit, Richard, the other thing that makes this, and it made it easy too, but to see it in real life is the possibilities. Because these aren't zombies in so much that they're, the undead. They're zombies and more like the 28 days or 28 weeks later where you can kill them. They're not undead, but they are not living in what we consider alive.
Oh.
You know what I mean, Richard? Like if you like in 28 days and 28 weeks later, those infected, if I shoot them, they're going down. You don't have to shoot them in the head. It's not like a zombie, where, only certain ways to kill it. Very, I don't want to say obtainable, possible.
Oh.
The way they explain, you know what I mean? They explained it really goddamn well at the beginning with that excerpt where it's just like, this isn't some like demonic force. It's bringing the dead to life. This isn't some goofy chemical radiation, from the military that got spilled into,
Night of the Evil or Night of the Living Dead. I
know. And I just thought about this the other day, Richard, because man, I just sat down and I rewatched Night of the Living Dead Part 2, which is so horrible but so good. That movie had
those to me is because that's the American Mall.
Yes.
No movie sums up the American Mall better than that.
Oh yeah. And
in Lima, Ohio, people, for you who might be in the area.
And even because there's always like two branches. There was a Return of the Living Dead, which was, the definitely more comedic. Yeah. They were the brain. They were like brains. They spoke. And send more cops. Like, oh, Jesus, God, man. Like you look back when you were a kid. Like, how was I scared of this when I was when I was little? Like, this is ridiculous. Love it, but stuff like The Last of Us, it's just like the level of realism, like, oh yeah, this parasitic fungus, hey, here's how it really happened in nature. You
Yeah.
know? Shit. So yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I love this show, Richard. And I had mentioned to you, Richard, we're not being paid or anything, but especially shows on HBO. You notice, like when the show's over, there's like, oh, look up the official HBO podcast of this show. His Dark Materials was one. I never paid that much attention to it. I didn't really pay that much attention to it this time, but I happened to notice on my Spotify that it popped up, and I was kind of like, I really like the show. I kind of want to hear what goes into it. When I read who was fronting the podcast, it was Troy Baker. I'm like, I know that name. Troy Baker, that's Joel from the video games. Joel. I'm like, okay, you have my attention. Then when I saw that the other two people were the showrunners, one of which was one of the people that worked at Naughty Dog, the creator of the video game, is responsible for the show. I'm like, that makes complete sense. That is why it's so accurate, because one of those people, that was part of the things that made The Witcher, I don't want to say fail, but the reason why it wasn't accurate was because they didn't have anybody that was, attached to the source material, attached to the game, to the show. The Last of Us does. I will say, Richard, that if you're like me and you really want to know the nuts and bolts into what makes a series click, that was a really good podcast. Hearing about the decisions they made, and it's like, look, we knew that we could do this because we had the time. We could do the backstory with Tess. We didn't have to focus on 20 minutes on it's like, this is how the character jumps and this is how the character throws something. We can delve into the character a little bit more. So good. If you're like me and you like to know stuff like that, I would recommend the official The Last of Us podcast. So
Cool.
Yeah, and we would love to know, especially anyone listening or watching, if you were a fan of the video game, what your opinion was in the translation. If you've never played the game before, I would love to know. We would love to know what you thought of the show, unencumbered by your knowledge of video games. Let us know what you thought. And speaking of letting us know, Richard, where can they find us at?
Well, the best place right now is just go to our main website. That's UVN.plus, PLUS, just like the name UVN Plus. That we've been rebranded, and now that we're our 20th year, you can find all our socials and everything, all the linkage there. So just find us, like us, and follow us.
Hit that like and subscribe button, people. I know, Richard, man, I know we should be more like that. God damn it, I can't do it. But yes, please like, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your family. Hey, all that stuff is down there. So on behalf of Richard Catterjohn and myself, thank you for listening or watching their first show of 2023. This is going to be a great year for us. We hope to see and hear from you in the upcoming year. Rich, if you would kindly, please.